You keep being disappointed by people. Friends who betray you, family who doesn't understand, strangers who don't care. You wonder why the world feels so cold, why kindness seems rare, why even those closest to you can leave you feeling empty and alone. Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher, would tell you to stop wondering. He warned us over 150 years ago. This isn't an accident, a flaw in the system, or bad luck. This is the very nature of human existence. And once you understand why, everything changes. Today, we're diving deep into Schopenhauer's darkest insights about human nature, insights that might shatter your illusions, but could also set you free. Because the truth, however harsh, is the only foundation upon which you can build a life of genuine peace. The will, the driving force behind human selfishness. To understand why people disappoint us, we must first understand what Schopenhauer called the will. This isn't willpower or determination as we commonly think of it. The will, in Schopenhauer's philosophy, is the fundamental force that drives all existence, a blind, irrational, insatiable hunger that lives at the core of every living being. Picture this. Beneath your consciousness, beneath your thoughts and dreams and noble intentions, there's something far more primitive at work. It's a force that doesn't think, doesn't plan, doesn't care about morality or fairness. It only wants. And it wants endlessly. This will manifests in humans as a constant craving for survival, for pleasure, for status, for love, for recognition. It's the reason a newborn cries the moment it enters the world. It's the reason teenagers rebel against their parents. It's the reason adults compete ruthlessly in their careers. It's the reason elderly people cling desperately to life even when suffering. Schopenhauer observed that this will makes genuine selflessness nearly impossible. When your friend chooses their career over your friendship, when your partner prioritizes their needs over yours, when your family member betrays your trust for their own gain, they're not evil. They're simply being human. The will inside them is doing what it does best, putting their survival, their pleasure, their satisfaction first. Think about your own behavior honestly. How often do you make decisions based purely on what's best for others, with no consideration for yourself? Even acts of apparent kindness often serve our own. Will we help others because it makes us feel good, because it enhances our reputation, because it aligns with our self-image as a good person? This doesn't make us monsters. It makes us biological entities shaped by millions of years of evolution, where those who put others first often didn't survive to pass on their genes. The will doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about fairness. It only cares about getting what it wants. Schopenhauer argued that recognizing this truth about the will is the first step toward wisdom. When you understand that every person you meet is driven by this same blind force, you stop taking their selfishness personally. You stop expecting them to prioritize your needs over their own deep-seated drives. The businessman who cheats you isn't personally attacking you. He's following his will-less drive for financial security. The friend who gossips about you isn't trying to hurt you specifically. She's satisfying her will-less need for social connection and status. The stranger who ignores your distress isn't heartless. His will is focused on his own problems and survival. This perspective doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it explains it. And in that explanation lies a kind of freedom. When you stop expecting people to act against their fundamental nature, you stop setting yourself up for constant disappointment. But understanding the will is only the beginning. The real trap lies in how we construct our expectations around this flawed understanding of human nature. The illusion factory, how our expectations set us up for disappointment. Schopenhauer believed that most human suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from the gap between our expectations and reality. We create elaborate mental models of how people should behave, how relationships should work, how the world should treat us, and then we're crushed when reality fails to match our fantasies. Consider how we approach relationships. From childhood, we're fed stories about unconditional love, perfect friendships, soulmates who complete us. Movies, books, and songs paint pictures of people who would sacrifice everything for each other, who understand each other perfectly, who never let each other down. These stories create what Schopenhauer might call the veil of Maya, a beautiful illusion that covers the harsh reality of existence. We enter relationships expecting others to fulfill roles they never agreed to play. We expect our parents to be wise and nurturing always. We expect our friends to prioritize our needs. We expect romantic partners to complete us emotionally and never disappoint us. But remember the will. Your mother's love for you, however genuine, must compete with her will's drive for her own security, recognition, and happiness. Your best friend's loyalty to you battles against their will's need for social acceptance and personal advancement. Your romantic partner's devotion fights constantly with their biological drives and personal fears. When these inevitable conflicts arise, when your mother criticizes you to make herself feel better, when your friend chooses a more popular crowd, when your partner prioritizes their career over your relationship, you feel betrayed. But you weren't betrayed. Your expectations were simply unrealistic from the start. Schopenhauer observed that we are particularly susceptible to disappointment because we project our own capacity for self-sacrifice onto others. If you're someone who genuinely tries to put others first, you naturally expect similar behavior in return. But this creates a cruel irony. The more selfless you are, the more disappointed you'll be by the selfishness of others. Think about your recent disappointments. How many stemmed from people failing to live up to your expectations, rather than from them actively trying to harm you? That colleague who didn't support your project wasn't plotting against you, they were protecting their own position. That family member who didn't call during your crisis wasn't indifferent to your pain, they were probably drowning in their own problems. We also create expectations about how the world should reward our efforts. We believe that if we're kind, others will be kind to us. If we work hard, we'll be recognized. If we're loyal, we'll receive loyalty in return. Schopenhauer called this naive optimism a dangerous delusion. The universe doesn't operate on a system of cosmic justice. Good people suffer, bad people prosper. Kindness is often met with exploitation. Hard work frequently goes unrewarded. This isn't a malfunction in the system, this is the system. When you understand this, you stop waiting for the world to acknowledge your goodness. You stop expecting fair treatment, grateful responses, or reciprocal kindness. You start making choices based on your own values rather than on hope for outcomes. But this understanding leads to a deeper question. If we can't rely on others for happiness, if the world won't reward our virtue, if disappointment is inevitable, what's the point of caring at all? Schopenhauer's answer might surprise you. The liberation of disappointment. Why broken expectations free you? Most people see disappointment as a purely negative experience, something to avoid, minimize, or quickly move past. Schopenhauer offered a radically different perspective. Disappointment is actually a form of liberation. It's reality breaking through your illusions and offering you the chance to build a life based on truth rather than fantasy. When someone disappoints you, they're teaching you something invaluable about the nature of existence. They're showing you that your happiness was built on unstable ground, on the expectation that others would behave in ways that contradict their fundamental nature. Think of it this way. Imagine you've been living in a house built on quicksand, but you thought it was built on solid rock. The house keeps shifting, cracking, threatening to collapse. You keep trying to repair it, reinforce it, make it stable. Then someone shows you that your foundation is quicksand. Initially, this revelation is devastating. All your repair efforts were wasted. Your sense of security was false. But now you have a choice. Keep pretending the foundation is solid and continue your futile repair efforts, or acknowledge the truth and build elsewhere. Disappointment offers the same choice. When people show you their true nature, when they prioritize themselves over you, when they fail to meet your expectations, when they reveal their limitations, You can either keep expecting them to change, or you can accept reality and adjust accordingly. Schopenhauer argued that each disappointment is an opportunity to reduce your dependence on external validation and external sources of happiness. When your friend betrays your trust, you learn that your sense of security can't depend on their loyalty. When your family fails to understand you, you discover that your self-worth can't rely on their approval. When strangers show indifference to your struggles, you realize that your peace of mind must come from within. This process is painful, but it's also profoundly freeing. Every broken expectation is a chain being cut. Every disappointment is a step toward emotional independence. Consider how much mental energy you spend trying to control other people's behavior. You craft your words carefully to avoid their anger. You modify your actions to earn their approval. You sacrifice your authentic self to maintain relationships built on false pretenses. When you accept that others will act according to their own will, regardless of your preferences, you stop wasting energy on impossible tasks. This doesn't mean becoming cynical or closing your heart to others. Instead, it means approaching relationships with realistic expectations and genuine acceptance. When you stop expecting your partner to complete you emotionally, you can appreciate what they actually offer. When you stop expecting your friends to always prioritize you, you can be grateful for the moments when they do choose to support you. Schopenhauer noticed that people who have been deeply disappointed often develop a kind of strength that those who've lived sheltered lives lack. They've learned not to place their happiness entirely in other people's hands. They've discovered resources within themselves that they never knew existed. They've found peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. But acceptance of human nature is only the first step. The question remains, if we can't depend on others for fulfillment, how do we build a meaningful life? The Path Forward, Schopenhauer's Guide to Inner Independence. Schopenhauer didn't leave us stranded in pessimism. Having diagnosed the problem of human suffering, he offered practical solutions for those brave enough to face reality without comfortable illusions. His prescription wasn't for the weak-willed. It required giving up many of the crutches that most people use to prop up their fragile sense of happiness. The first principle is radical self-reliance in emotional matters. This doesn't mean isolating yourself from others or becoming cold and unfeeling. It means developing inner resources so robust that your fundamental peace doesn't depend on other people's behavior. Start by examining your emotional dependencies. Do you need constant reassurance from your partner to feel lovable? Do you require your friends' approval to feel worthy? Do you depend on your family's understanding to feel validated? Each of these dependencies is a potential source of suffering because it places your happiness in someone else's hands. Schopenhauer advocated cultivating what he called intellectual pleasures, sources of satisfaction that do not depend on other people as cooperation. Reading philosophy, studying art, learning new skills, contemplating nature, pursuing creative endeavors. These activities generate genuine fulfillment because they arise from your own engagement with reality rather than from social validation. He particularly emphasized the importance of solitude, not as lonely isolation, but as peaceful self-companionship. Most people fear being alone because they've never learned to enjoy their own company. They fill every quiet moment with distractions, social media, background noise. But solitude is where you discover whether you actually like yourself, or just like the reflection you see in other people's approval. Practice spending time alone without distractions. No phone, no music, no tasks to complete. Just you and your own thoughts. Initially, this might feel uncomfortable or boring. But gradually, you'll discover the pleasure of your own mind, the richness of your inner life, the peace that comes from not needing to perform for anyone. Schopenhauer also recommended developing compassion, not the sentimental kind that expects gratitude or reciprocation, but genuine understanding of shared suffering. When you truly grasp that everyone is driven by the same blind will, that everyone struggles with the same fundamental dissatisfactions, you stop taking their selfishness personally. You might even feel sorry for them. This compassion isn't about becoming a doormat or accepting abuse. It's about responding to difficult people from a place of understanding rather than wounded ego. When someone treats you badly, instead of thinking, "How could they do this to me?" you think, "They must be suffering greatly to act this way." This shift in perspective reduces your own suffering while opening possibilities for more skillful responses. Another key practice is reducing your material and social desires. Schopenhauer observed that most of our suffering comes from wanting things we do and have, or fearing the loss of things we do have. The more you can simplify your desires, the less power circumstances have over your peace of mind. This doesn't mean living in poverty or avoiding all pleasures. It means distinguishing between genuine needs and manufactured wants. Do you need that expensive car to be happy? Or do you just want it because society told you it would bring status? Do you need constant social stimulation? Or have you just been afraid to discover what you're like without it? Most importantly, Schopenhauer emphasized the cultivation of wisdom through direct observation of life, rather than through adherence to comforting beliefs. Pay attention to how people actually behave rather than how you wish they would behave. Notice the patterns in your own disappointments. Observe the gap between your expectations and reality without immediately trying to close it through force or manipulation. This kind of honest observation is difficult because it often reveals truths we'd rather not see. But it's also the foundation of genuine peace because it aligns your understanding with actual conditions rather than preferred fantasies. The goal isn't to become emotionally numb or socially withdrawn. It's to develop such strong inner resources that you can engage with others generously, without depending on their responses for your well-being. You can love without clinging, help without expecting gratitude, and connect without losing yourself. The freedom of truth, Schopenhauer's philosophy, isn't comfortable. It asks you to give up some of your most cherished illusions about human nature, relationships, and the possibility of finding perfect happiness through external means. It suggests that the disappointments you've experienced aren't anomalies to be fixed, but inevitable features of existence to be understood and transcended. But here's what Schopenhauer discovered, and what countless others have found when they've had the courage to follow his insights. There's profound freedom in accepting reality as it actually is rather than as you wish it were. When you stop expecting others to carry the weight of your happiness, you stop being disappointed by their predictable humanity. When you stop looking for perfect love, perfect friendship, perfect understanding from others, you become capable of appreciating the imperfect but genuine connections that are actually possible. When you develop inner resources strong enough to sustain you regardless of external circumstances, you can engage with the world from a position of strength rather than desperate need. You can be kind without being naive, loving without being dependent, generous without being resentful. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. And realism, however initially painful, is the only foundation upon which you can build a life of authentic peace and genuine strength. Schopenhauer's truth is indeed painful, but it's also profoundly liberating. The choice is yours. Continue expecting others to behave in ways that contradict their fundamental nature and remain forever disappointed, or accept the reality of human existence and discover the unshakable peace that comes from relying primarily on yourself. The disappointments will keep coming. People will continue to act according to their will rather than your preferences. But once you understand this pattern, once you stop taking it personally, once you develop the inner resources to remain stable regardless of others' behavior, you'll finally be free. And in that freedom, you might discover something surprising. When you no longer need others to make you happy, you become capable of enjoying them exactly as they are. When you stop expecting them to complete you, you can appreciate what they actually offer. When you release them from the impossible burden of providing your fulfillment, you create space for authentic connection based on reality rather than fantasy. This is Schopenhauer's gift to those brave enough to receive it, The recognition that your disappointment in others is actually pointing you toward the only happiness that can't be taken away, the happiness that comes from understanding and accepting life exactly as it is, not as you wish it were. The world is harsh, people are flawed, and perfect happiness is an illusion. But within those limitations lies a freedom more profound than any based on false hopes. And that freedom is worth every comfortable illusion you'll have to surrender to find it.